Hi, welcome back. It's Mike Newton down here at Lytham Golf Academy. Just recently done a review video of the brand new Wilson Staff Cortex Driver, which I really enjoyed hitting. There is a link up there soon, which will you can go and check that out in a little bit more detail. But maybe what we're seeing with the Cortex Driver is quite a lot of adjustability. So I thought, let's do a little video here, just testing this adjustability. Let's change it around. We can obviously measure it with GC2 HMT and maybe see if this adjustability is allowing us to really shift that ball flight as per what maybe Wilson are sort of claiming. So just before we jump into the video, welcome back if you're a regular viewer. Thanks very much for supporting, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. If you're new to my channel, then welcome also. Loads more golf content coming your way through club reviews, club comparisons, and also swing tips. So if you haven't subscribed, again, consider subscribing. Also hook up on my social media platforms. So we've got both Instagram and Twitter, and both handles there are at MN Golf Coach. Okay, so Wilson Cortex Driver, I was very impressed with the way this sort of performed. The looks of it looks great, a lot of adjustabilities, a lot of options on there. The sound was really nice, and we got some pretty decent numbers, so I was quite impressed. So just delving a little bit more in this video in terms of hitting some shots with different settings. So I'm going to start off with how I had it in the review, which is set at 9 degrees. So it's a 9 degree head set at 9 degrees, so standard on that loft sleeve setting. The weight on the track is positioned in the furthest forward point, which tends to keep my spin down, which is good for me. And then I've got the weights in terms of the heel to toe weights in a neutral position, so the 8 gram weight in that toe section. So I'm going to hit a few shots with it in that setting, and then I'm going to move that track, the weight in the track, right to the far back position, which is basically encouraging more of a higher launch and a slightly higher spin number. So again, we'll have a little look and see if that changes. And then maybe what I would like to also do is change it around with that neck sleeve and the loft setting also. So as I say, going to hit a few shots. Might not show you all the ball flights here because obviously going to hit quite a few shots, but we'll start off with that weight in that further forward track position. Ah, feels lovely. That's a solid hit. Great ball flight there. Okay, that's getting out there up to that 299. Okay, so that was a nice little start there with that weight in that front section. So let's hit a few shots. So there's 4 shots hit with the weight in that furthest forward section. So essentially that lower spin setting that is in the driver. So going to switch that setting right to the back now. Keep the loft exactly the same. Keep the heel and toe the same. Not going to change those. We're literally just going to move that centre track all the way to the back, and we'll see how that maybe changes ball flight and spin numbers. Okay, so as I say, weight is now in that back section. So in theory, this should create a slightly higher launch and maybe a little bit more of a higher spin number against that furthest forward position. Let's get this first one hit. Yeah, that definitely a little bit higher on that ball flight. Looks to be climbing. I bet that's dropped a bit of distance there. Yes, that's getting 279. So see a drop of distance there straight away, and that spin number's definitely gone up a little bit more. That, again, batch of shots here, and then we'll look at some numbers a little bit later on in the video. Okay, so there's the last shot hit with that weight in that back section. Definitely see a little drop off of distance there. We'll look at some numbers just short. That was 276 on that last particular shot. So let's just have a quick look at those numbers first between that front weight, sorry, the weight being in the front and then obviously at the back. Okay, so let's look at those two numbers there first. So obviously weight at the front, weight at the back. So nothing else has changed in the drive or the loft or the heel to toe settings. Everything's been the same apart from that front to back weight setting. So club head speed, as you can see, pretty much identical. Ball speed, pretty much identical, maybe a touch more with the weight forward, but literally minimal. Launch, very, very similar. If anything, the weight back was actually a touch lower on that launch. Maybe the strike's just going to change that a little bit, possibly. But the key one to really look at is that backspin number. So you can see with the weight forward is averaging at 2,500 RPMs, which was very similar to what I got in the review video, with that weight in that furthest forward setting, which is a little bit more optimum for me in a way. As soon as I move that weight back, you can see that number's just jumped straight away. A good 700 revolutions more backspin on the golf ball. So what that then does to a carry distance is you've got 272 with the weight forward at that 2,500 spin number, and you can see a drop off there of 11 yards carry through the air alone. Just really through that spin number. You can see ball speed's pretty identical there, 1 mile an hour on average, which is not a lot. So definitely through that spin number there, you can see it creates a shorter carry distance. So peak height there, also 3 yards higher on its flight. I did sort of see that noticeable peak height. You then got to look at your descent angle, so 40 degrees coming to land as opposed to 37. So coming in a little bit steeper because of the higher flight, and it's just spinning up a little bit more. Just the other thing to note out there as well with that difference of weight setting, I was actually more accurate with that weight in that back setting. So you can see the red dispersion ring was really quite tight there, so I was very accurate with it in the back. With when the weight was more forward, a little bit less accurate, a little bit more of that left miss in the shots there. So again, playing around with that CG, we know when shoving the weight further back helps MOI, helps to create a little bit more of a stable club when you slightly miss hitting. Okay, so we can clearly see that weight setting is making a bit of a difference there. So what I'm going to do now is going to leave that weight in that back section, and also what I'm going to do now is add 2 degrees of loft. So in the next setting there, I've just basically released the shaft, twirled it round, and it's on +2 degrees. So that my 9-degree head now is playing at 11 degrees. But there is a downside to that, or not downside, there is a trade-off there, is you're going to sacrifice a little bit of face angle. So straight away now, as I present that down by the golf ball, I'm looking at a very closed looking club face. This club face just looks like it's pointing left. So the way the tip section works, as you add the loft, you are going to change face angle. That tends to be a story in pretty much all models of drivers. It's just a sacrifice you're going to have to. If you're going to tweak that loft, you're also going to affect that face angle. So as you add loft, you'll see it close. As you de-loft it, you'll see it open a little bit. So to me, this just is probably the worst setting I could probably put on this driver in terms of 11 degrees of loft, a closed club face setting, and the weight track right at the back. But for a lot of golfers out there, this could be very, very useful. So for instance, through fitting sessions, sometimes I get golfers in who have a bit of a left to right, maybe not having lessons, and they just want something to straighten them up a little bit. Then it's sometimes they drop them into a low lofted head, but then bring the loft back up through the next setting, actually gives them that help with that closure of the face. Then you've got a bit of weight to switch around the head to make it a little bit more into draw also. So weight at the back, 11 degrees of loft, and we're going to get this first one hit. Yeah, okay, straight away there, I'm just seeing that turnover a little bit more left there. It looks to be climbing a little bit as we've just seen with that weight positioning there. So again, we'll hit a batch of shots in that setting, and then we'll move it again and go from there. Okay. So there's 4 shots hit, just that little left bias in there. There's a couple in there I could feel myself trying to manipulate because I know that face points left and I don't like that. So a couple there just going left, the last one 270. So still seeing that drop off of distance there purely because obviously that weight's in that back section, probably that little bit more loft. Saw a slightly higher flight, but not massively. So the loft change didn't really give me loads more height there than the others. But we'll look at a little bit more detail and just sort of check those numbers out. Okay, so looking at numbers again. So again, club head speed very, very similar. Ball speed just dropped a fraction there, but not by much. Launch It's actually the same as when I had it at 9 degree, exactly the same, yet I've gone up 2 in loft. So again, sometimes players influence will just try and manipulate that loft. I know there's 11 degrees, subconsciously I'm trying to adjust that a little bit through impact. Nothing intentional, but sometimes you just react to that a little bit. In my defence of trying to square the club face, because as I say, as you up that loft, you will close that club face, and that's what I don't like looking at. So that, as I say, that's probably my worst sort of setting, really, in a way. So you can see the spin still at that 3-1 sort of area, so still in that high category because I've got that weight set in that back section. Peak height's very, very similar, descent angle's very similar, and obviously 259 against 261. So just seeing a little bit of a drop off there, but more important, that offline column there. I'm not sure if you got that in shot there actually, but the weight forward setting there was averaged at -2 left, so very straight. Back section was +1 to the right. Which my biggest miss there was 4 left, but then that with the added 2 degrees of loft, which we know shuts the face, I got 2 left shots or 3 left shots in there, so I averaged 16 yards left of target there with a 36 in there. So obviously more left bias because of that closed face position. Right, okay, so one final little adjustment here before we look at more numbers. So I've moved the weight on the back, the sole of the club now right back into that forward position, so where I had it originally, and now I've moved the loft down by 1 degree. So I've moved it down by 1 degree from the 9 degree head that I've got. So this is basically playing at 8 degree. So this driver can go up to 2 degrees upwards in ½ a degree increments, or it can actually go down by 1 degree again in ½ degree increments. So I've got it down as far down as it possibly can. So this is playing at 8 degrees. Weight forward, so getting a little bit more powerful, a bit more back to sort of my sort of area that I would have it set at. And like what we saw when we added the loft, it closed the face. I'm now seeing this club face sit a little bit open, okay, which is a little bit more appealing to me because my bad miss is left and I don't like that left miss. So a lot of the generally see the better players would like to see that either sit a bit more square or a bit more open. So this is the one thing I do really like about this Wilson Cortex Driver is it's in its neutral setting of 9 degree for 9 degree head, the standard neck sleeve, it sits absolutely square, and when you start changing it around it is moving it. So this is great, sits a little bit open, weights forward. Okay, so let's see what happens to the numbers. Okay, so that's a nice opener. Just actually worked a tiny bit up the left, just cut that a fraction toe side there, but it's a longer hit, 304. Okay, so that open face, didn't get it going to the right. Missed that spin number, but look at those in a little bit more detail after I've hit a few shots with this 8 degree. Okay, so there's 4 shots hit in the 8 degree, weight forward, and obviously that sits that face a little bit open, coupled just slightly, but I can see myself just trying to counteract a few there also. So again, let's go and look at those numbers with that slight change of setting. Okay, so looking at those numbers there with the 8 degree and the weight forward there. So club head speed just a fraction more there. Didn't really feel like I was swinging any quicker there, to be honest. 161 ball speed, launching at lowest launch there. We can see at 9.2, so obviously 8 degree doing a bit of work there. Spin is the lowest spin at 2355. I said that the first one I hit, I cut a little bit high toe, which you can see dragged that spin off at 1700. So probably just pulled that average down a little bit. So it's probably very similar to the first lot of averages around that sort of 2.4, 2.5 area. Peaking at only 25 yards, so definitely that lower flight from that launch there and that lower on that spin number, so keeping that peak height down, come descending a little bit flatter, so that's going to trot a little bit more when it lands, get a bit more run. 270 through the air, where the first batch hit was 272, so similar sort of numbers there, 297 total. So yeah, doing a little bit of its job there in terms of that 8 degree loft. Right, okay guys, so there's a little bit of testing with the adjustability in the new Wilson Cortex Driver, and It's got a lot of adjustability there. Obviously, we haven't touched on the heel to toe weight in there. You know, this video could go on for hours testing all the different options you've got in here. So just really wanted to tell you or show you a little bit more of the bigger setting changes really for me, because the difference of 6 grams heel to toe, I don't know, it's quite minimal. But I think that backtrack one, you can see definitely a noticeable difference in that spin number, which was good. As I up the loft, definitely noticeable a shot direction, more through the closure face as I've added the loft, and didn't really sort of see the launch change there. But again, that me possibly just adapting a little bit, knowing I've got too much loft and a little bit of that shut face. Then obviously Dlofting it, we can see that lower launch did come out, and obviously the weight going back forward, you can see just that spin number back into around that sort of 2.3, 2.5 area. So definitely doing a job there, and there's a lot of adjustability. But again, it just goes to show you've got to get out and there and get fitted for these. You can't be picking these off the shelf, buying them online, and you know, because obviously we've got different shaft options. There's 3 different shaft options. Then you've got the flexes. There's hundreds of options here. So you've got to really get fit and dialed and suit it into your club delivery into the ball, your dynamic loft you deliver, your swing path, the intensity of your shot shape, spin numbers as well. So there's a lot to sort of play around with and really sort of dial in. But go and get fit, as the message always is from my videos. So if you enjoy the video, thanks very much for watching. Do comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Maybe what do you think of the settings there? Is, you know, maybe give me an idea, maybe what setting you think you go into. You know, what's your shot shape out? Maybe what you've just seen there, and see what sort of setting might suit your particular swing. If you haven't already subscribed, appreciate you doing so. Do hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get notifications of any future videos. Again, on social media, both Twitter and Instagram, and it as @MN Golf Coach. So let's hook up on there, let's stay in contact, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.